A federal judge has ruled that the state of Maryland has failed to provide a remedy to diversify academic programs at its 4 HBCUs. But the ruling also rejected a plan by civil rights groups aimed at putting the state's HBCUs on a competitive playing field with traditionally white universities. Legal groups representing Morgan State University, Coppin State University, the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, and Bowie State University have argued that Maryland has HBCU academic programs. They have frankly been taken from those schools, given to traditionally white schools, impacting the students at those HBCUs. They say it's segregation and it's unequal treatment as well. This lawsuit has been going on for a very long time, and so the question is, will it end? Joining us right now is Brenda Shum, Director of the Educational Opportunities Project for the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. First and foremost, how long, for folks who don't know, we've been covering this, how long has this suit been going on in Maryland?
This lawsuit was actually filed way back in 2006, so we are very excited by the judge's order, which finally offers students at Maryland's 4 HBCUs with the opportunity to attend non-segregated institutions.
Now, for folks who are, again, are not familiar with this, the complaint from HBCUs is that they had various academic programs that were attractive to other students, non-African American students. Maryland allowed the predominantly white institutions to, in essence, replicate those programs, which caused those white students to say, oh, I don't need to go to Morgan State or Bowie State or Coppin or the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. I can go to the University of Maryland or some other school.
Absolutely, that's absolutely correct. This is the hallmark of a segregated and dual system of higher education. The replication of academic programs at Maryland's historically black institutions, which really reinforces the self-segregation of students and facilitates the vestiges of discrimination throughout the Maryland system.
And so with this lawsuit is going through, the remedies varied. So the state of Maryland wanted to what? Just offer scholarships and other sort of incentives, as opposed to literally removing those programs from those schools and returning them to the HBCUs?
I want to be very clear that the position of the state of Maryland throughout this trial was that there should be no remedy for the constitutional violation that occurred in this case. When forced to put forward a proposal by the judge, the state of Maryland limited its proposal to summer programming, marketing, and financial aid, and refused to address the fundamental underlying nature of the constitutional violation. Instead, the judge has thankfully set up a process and a framework by which an independent monitor will look at the academic identity of each of the institutions throughout the system and assure that Maryland's HBCUs have a unique institutional identity based on their academic programs.
Now, what was it the civil rights groups wanted to actually take place where the judge said that also hasn't happened? And so, because both of you, were you required where both of you were to agree that the state of Maryland and the various civil rights groups representing the HBCUs?
The coalition of current and former students at all 4 HBCUs have wanted to work collaboratively and cooperatively with the state of Maryland and the Maryland Higher Education Commission from the very beginning to resolve the constitutional violation in this case. What they have been asking for is that the state commit to implementing new and even transferring programs from Maryland's traditionally white institutions to those historically black institutions in order to address the fact that the HBCUs have never fully realized their academic potential. The court did not agree with the plaintiff's request in this case to transfer programs from the traditionally white institutions to the black institutions, but it did agree that the state has to do more for its HBCUs by implementing new, meaningful, unique, and high-demand programs.
So where are we now in terms of what's next? She appointed what, a special master to essentially say, I'm going to come up with a plan in consultation with both?
Absolutely. Well, what will happen is the court did not actually identify the special master in this case, but invited the parties to submit some proposed names and resumes for a special master to assist the court in reviewing all of the information necessary to make a meaningful remedy in this case. The special master will be responsible essentially for soliciting proposals and collecting data from both the state of Maryland as well as all of the institutions throughout the system.
So has this federal judge essentially ruled that Maryland has been grossly unfair with how it has treated HBCUs?
I think it's important for people to understand that this judge found a constitutional violation several years ago. In 2013, she already determined that the state of Maryland was engaging in unnecessary program duplication in direct violation of the Constitution. We are finally having an opportunity to come up with a framework to address that violation by creating unique and meaningful programs at the HBCUs that will attract students of all races. This is a really fundamental decision because it means that students at Maryland's HBCUs are entitled to the educational benefits of a diverse learning environment.
And probably I would think that the only other state where we have seen this type of success ensuing was the case Alvin Chambers led in Mississippi.
Well, there have actually been 4 major higher desegregation cases, but the most important is the U.S. v. Fordyce litigation. And in that case, the Supreme Court set up a framework for understanding how to address desegregation in the higher education context as opposed to the K-12 context. So there has been litigation in Tennessee, in Louisiana, in Mississippi, and the state of Alabama. This is the first case in decades, though, where the court has really looked at how to operationalize a desegregation plan at the higher ed level.
So when do you think this, the legal aspects will be resolved with this special master? Are we talking 6 months? Are we talking a year? Because this has been going on now for more than a decade.
Absolutely. These students are entitled to justice today. What is going to happen is that the court does recognize that it could take some time to really dismantle the structures that have facilitated the vestiges of discrimination in higher education. So she anticipates that it could take as long as 10 years to really build up the institutional identity of our historically black colleges and universities. And that special master, the independent monitor, will be reviewing progress consistently throughout that time period to ensure that Maryland is in fact complying with this court's order.
All right then, Brenda, we sure appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I want to bring in our panel, Karen Maria Alston, founder and CEO of the Spectrum Circle, Brandon Cooper, chairman, Prince George's County, Maryland Republican Party. What is interesting here is when you look at this case, and I brought up the other cases as well, when you talk about white supremacy. The issue here is you have Maryland, significant, first of all, the second largest concentration of African Americans out behind the state of Mississippi. And then you see how HBCUs have been treated in this state. When you broaden this to the other states as well, this is the point that I make about white supremacy, that white supremacy is not Democrat, white supremacy is not Republican, is white. And what you have here are these institutions that have not been treated fairly. And the fact of the matter is, I have yet to meet somebody at any HBCU who said from day one, HBCUs were treated with fairness, because the reality is they were set up because we couldn't go to predominantly white institutions. So so even the setting up of the schools, they were inherently unequal.
The history of it is based on that, for sure.
That's why this ruling is so exciting, because the issue is equity. And as you said, Roland, we were set up, I'm a proud graduate of an HBCU, we were set up from the beginning to be unequal. So one of the things—
And set up to fail.
And set up to fail. One of the things I am concerned about are the students that are in school now. So if it's a 10-year timetable for the special master to resolve these issues, we still have to help the children, the students that are there today, as opposed to 10 years from now when all of this is resolved.
But Brandon, the thing that people have to understand about this here, these HBCUs were ahead of the curve. They were creating unique academic programs that were attracting non-black students, because they also understood that all of a sudden, if you diversify in your student body, you also then are getting the necessary resources for buildings, for other sort of programs. And so that's what I don't think people understand. Somebody out there may be saying, well, why are you creating programs that's going to attract a white student or Asian student or Latino student? No, these HBCUs, first of all, we're saying, no, we want to be able to compete. We also need those state dollars and resources.
Right.
These other institutions saw the success of these HBCUs and said, oh, we're going to create the same thing. And if you're a student, you're saying, wait a minute, if I can go to better facilities, better faculty, better research and development over here, I can skip HBCU over here.
Yeah, and you're 100% right. This fight actually goes back to the 70s. The state of Maryland has been fighting with the U.S. Department of Education in the 70s to try to get equality for HBCUs.
You mean the 1870s?
And, I mean, probably that too, but as far as legal battle, it goes back to the 70s of the Department of Education. And you're right, back in the 70s, 20% of the population of HBCUs in the state were white, from white background. It's down now to 5%. So there's definitely been a systematic, and I would like to quote the chief counsel for the Lawyers Committee. He said that in more than 60 years since the Supreme Court found segregation was illegal, the leadership in Maryland has made decision after decision that's undermined efforts of HBCUs. And so to your point about the universities doing this, it's bigger than that. This is a decision that is coming from the General Assembly.
Oh,
and
yes.
also the Maryland Higher Education.
But that's precisely my point. And the point is, this is, I set it up that way because, again, in Mississippi, where they were dealing with this, they were dealing with Republican leadership. Maryland largely dealing with Democratic leadership. You've had some Republican governors as well. This is an issue of white supremacy.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So I love it when I have these debates with people. They go, oh yeah, well the KKK came out of the Democratic Party, and I said, look, I can show you the KKK. I can show you Herbert Hoover and his Lily White movement, who was Republican. I can show you Woodrow Wilson, who was president, one of the most violent racists in America. I said, it didn't matter if they were Democrat or Republican. I said, it was white supremacy. Yeah. And that's the issue here with these HBCUs, what they're dealing with.
And one more thing, this is bigger than just HBCUs in Maryland. They're doing the same thing if you see the marijuana industry. They have 15 companies now that can operate marijuana dispensaries in Maryland. None of them went to black-owned firms. This is the same thing going on with the hospitals in Maryland.
It's it's freezing African. Right. It's a system.
It's pervasive through Maryland. It's pervasive, and it's crazy.
It's pervasive through America.
You're right.
That's the deal.
You're right. 100%.
So, all right, Brenda, again, we appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. Good luck.
So
Weekdays on TV One.
I will never lie to you.
Oh my God.
Roland Martin.
He doesn't want to talk to us. He wants to ignore us.
Uncensored.
Hell no. That ain't gonna cut it, boo.
Unapologetic.
No, that is fundamentally false. You are wrong.
Unfiltered.
He wants an America where we all look alike. He ain't talking about black people.
Unrelenting.
You better go work out, because you got a fight on your hands.
NewsOne Now with Roland Martin. Weekdays at 7 a.m. on TV One.